For the past 10 years or so, I've been having some dreams that partially, or totally, end up happening in real life. At first, they were silly, trivial things. The first one I had was back in early 2007. I was just finishing up middle school and my sisters and I were semi-obsessed with Disney Channel shows. My dream was a harmless, hanging out with celebrities dream. The particular dream featured the Sprouse twins from The Sweet Life. In the dream, I walked into a room where they were wearing fake muscle t-shirts, one in red and one in blue, and flexing in the mirror. I was confused and asked, "What are you guys doing?" They whirled around quickly and replied, "Nothing." A couple months or so later, an episode came out where they became superheroes in red and blue muscle suits. Unfortunately, I hadn't taken to writing down my dreams until after this incident, so I don't have any proof that I dreamt it before it happened. Another one was a vague dream about spending the day with a guy, walking around talking and having fun. I didn't remember his face when I woke up, but I remembered his hair. He had a very pronounced cowlick at his forehead, and how it felt to hug him at the end, and how real it all felt. Literally 2 or 3 months later, I ran into a friend of mine at a local amusement park. We were both there for school field trips, but for completely different purposes, and from schools 3 hours apart. I ended up hanging out with him for the whole trip until I had to leave. When I hugged him, my dream flashed into my mind. This trip was exactly the same as my dream, down to his hair and the hug. On the bus ride home, I stared out the window in shock. This one is documented in my journals, and I still get goosebumps when I think about it. The dreams took a turn for the unexpectedly dark sometime later. My sisters, Michelle and Lizzie, and I made friends with 2 English kids through a writing website. These 2 kids were really goofy and funny, and after talking to them for a while, they told us that one of them, I'll call him Mike, had had cancer and was in remission. A while later, they revealed that the cancer was back, but Mike was going in for treatment again. Cue the dream. I dreamt that we, my sisters and I, went to visit them across the pond. I hung back with Mike's mom while everyone else played in the yard. I asked her about Mike, how he was doing. Quietly, she told me that this time, the cancer was terminal. He wouldn't make it. We got the same news in real life a couple of months after that. He and Lizzie were really good friends, and she took it hard. I think she still writes "Dear Mike" at the beginning of her journal entries, and it's been almost 6 years. I've started to recognize the dreams that are potentially real, and I had one 2 nights ago. In the dream, a friend of mine was crying. At first I didn't know why, and she didn't tell me. But then I realized her baby bump was gone. She'd lost her child. I hugged her tightly for a long time before I woke up. Right now, my friend is 5 months pregnant and due in July. I'm praying that I'm wrong about this dream. I was at my favorite aunt and uncle's house the day before my 6th birthday, and would also be staying the night there, giving my parents time to get the house ready. The day had already been a blast. We had gotten ice cream, I had gotten to play at the park, and help my aunt out at the pharmacy. I don't know why, but for some reason, I loved going there. I've always been shy and all the people made me nervous, so I think it was just because I got to spend time with my aunt. Anyway, back to the story. We got back from my aunt's work, and she went inside to start making dinner. Meanwhile, I played catch out in the backyard with my uncle, laughing when their dog barked at us. A few minutes in, and my uncle accidentally threw the ball into the woods. "I'll get it," I yelled, and took off. I don't remember exactly what happened in the woods, but I do remember finding the ball, and then turning around to find I had no idea how to get back out. After that, my memory gets fuzzier. But this is what I was told happened. "Izzy," my uncle yelled when he saw me, looking half scared and half relieved. "You were in there for 10 minutes. What happened?" I handed him the ball and said with a grin, "I got lost, and I was scared, but then Mr. S helped me find my way out." Mr. S? My uncle made a face as he looked down at me. None of the neighbors called themselves that. In fact, I knew all of the neighbors. I smiled back and nodded. "Yep." "Dinner time." My aunt called out the back door before he could ask me anything else. At the table, once we started eating, my aunt spoke up. Apparently, she had heard me out in the backyard. "Who's Mr. S? I'd like to thank him for helping you." I shrugged. "I don't know. He was out in the woods." "Can you tell us what he looked like?" my uncle asked. I looked at them and said, "I kid you not. He was really tall and didn't have a face." "That's nice," my aunt just laughed, assuming I was talking about an imaginary friend of some sort. Fast forward to last year, I was 17 years old and with my aunt again. She was staying with us for a week looking for a new house. I was on my couch playing Slender, The Arrival, on my laptop. She walked over and asked what I was doing, and then froze. "What is it?" I asked, giving her a confused look. She pointed at the screen and said, "That thing, what's it called?" "Slenderman," I said. "Why?" My aunt just asked me if I remembered the day before my 6th birthday. I nodded and told her I remembered some of it. She proceeded to tell me about how I said Mr. S helped me find my way out of the woods, and how the description I gave of him matched Slenderman's. I wouldn't have known anything about creepypasta at that age, so that really freaked me out. This happened about 2 years ago, nearing the end of September. My aunt and her friend decided to fly up to New York from Panama to enjoy their mini vacation with my parents and I. Although many strange and paranormal experiences have happened to me ever since I was little, this event stayed with me and affected me more than the other experiences. Here's the thing. Many things have happened to a lot of my family members, especially my aunt and her friend. We'll get back to that later though. So it was around 10:30 at night. And keep in mind that my old neighborhood was a very calm and quiet place. Since I live near the countryside, not much action happens in our neighborhoods. The neighbors were either elderly or young couples with smaller children. None that could cause trouble around the neighborhood. There were only about 20 to 25 houses in the entire neighborhood I lived in. Moving on, the three of us decided to stay up late to watch scary movies while my parents slept upstairs in their room. My aunt's friend was sitting near the slide doors leading to the backyard, while my aunt and I were sitting in a bigger couch near the front door. I was sitting on the left side where the door faced, and my aunt sat on the right side of me, which meant I was closest to the front door. We spent about 10 minutes debating on which movie we would watch. After those 10 minutes, we finally chose to watch Odd Thomas, which wasn't really a scary movie, but it was about a guy who could see spirits and demons. What a coincidence. We were only 2 minutes into the movie when I had a sudden urge to look at the door. I glanced back at my aunt and her friend, only to see them staring at the door as well. I looked back at the door for about 5 seconds. and then a loud bang came, and then another one following after, and then a third one. All 3 bangs came from the front door, almost as if 5 people had just body slammed into the door 3 times. I thought it was going to fly off of its frame. My first instinct was to run to the kitchen and grab a knife, but as I was about to do that, my aunt grabbed me by my shirt and told me to stay down. As I looked to my right, I saw my aunt's friend with her knees to her chest, rocking herself back and forth, while my aunt just kept her gaze towards the door. While all 3 of us kept our attention on the door, next to it there were 2 small rectangular windows on either side of it. The right window had a small curtain and the left side was being covered with a small decorative tree. The small curtain had a gap in between it, because it was glued onto the window from the top area to the bottom area, leaving the middle part loose. At the moment of the bangs, it caused the middle area of the curtain to puff up slowly, and then quickly press against the window, leaving it wrinkled. After that, we were all silent, all of us terrified. My aunt denied being scared, but at the moment I could see nothing but fear in her face. I wanted to run upstairs to get my parents, but I was too afraid to go up the stairs because it was right in front of the door. All I could do was text and call them, but they were too deep in their slumber to hear their phones. My aunt told the 2 of us to calm down and dismissed it as the wind. We all know it couldn't have been, but in order to stay calm, she made up that excuse. And I must say that it was totally cliché. The next morning I told my mother about the previous events. She brushed it off by saying it must have been a bear or a deer. Another cliché thing to say. We both went outside to inspect and found my mom's decorations near the front of the door thrown off to the side. There were no scratch marks or bumps on the door. Everything seemed normal, except for her decorations laying on the side. When the 3 of us looked at the door, the night of the event, there wasn't anything that could have caught our attention. Since the woods were 40 meters away from our house, we would have heard the trees moving with the wind, but we heard nothing. The movie was playing at the time, but it was strange how we all felt a sudden urge to look at the door, almost as if we knew that something was about to happen. The bangs were extremely loud and caused me to jump up from the couch. It couldn't have been kids playing a prank on us, because I'd been living there for about 3 years and nothing like that ever happened. Plus, I knew the neighbors well enough to know that they'd never do such a thing like that. There were exactly 3 bangs, one after the other. One could have honestly caused the door to fly out of place, but thank God it didn't. What about the curtain? The only explanation we could come up with was that the impact of the bangs created the wind, causing the curtain to react that way. But why did it inflate slowly if the bangs were rapid, and then suddenly cause it to go against the window so fast after the bangs were over? My aunt thinks that the wind must have been knocked off of its course. That's why we didn't hear the trees moving, and created huge columns of wind that must have caused the door to move such. The gust of wind must have gotten inside the house from the cracks of the door, leading the curtain to puff up. Personally, it doesn't make any sense, and it sounds like total bullshit to me. She also mentioned that she saw a shadow outside, but she doesn't have an explanation for that. I didn't see a shadow outside. My mother came up with an excuse as well. She said it might have been a deer or a bear, but why would a deer or a bear bang their head, or entire body for that matter, into a door? Like I previously said, there were no scratch marks to prove it was an animal. No animal could have caused those 3 loud bangs. We've had deer sightings in that neighborhood before, but none that have acted in such a strange behavior. Usually, they would all run back into the woods. Bears are out of the question. Not once have there been sightings of them. I should also mention that we had the lights from outside on. Why would an animal come that close to a house? Especially a door that is clearly being illuminated by a light. Like I said before, animals in general are out of the question. As I mentioned, my aunt, along with my mother, have had experiences, many unexplained events, and they believe in the paranormal. I think the only reason they tried to make up an excuse for this situation was to prevent me from becoming paranoid and afraid. It's pretty late for that now, since I've had my fair share of experiences as well. Now, to my aunt's friend, my aunt told me that when her friend was younger, she suffered from really bad night terrors. She said she saw things, demonic identities as she described them. She'd wake up screaming and crying. It was traumatizing for her. Her family had always been religious and they prayed for her every night, and slowly, those things haunting her went away as she grew up. That really creeped me out and led me to believe that she might have brought or attracted that thing to my house. Or maybe it could have been something else. I hope this never happens to me again. Please let me know if you guys think it might have been the wind that could have caused those extreme loud knocks. Or some kind of creature.